purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
This habit originally started for me not many years, but about a little over a year ago. And I'm not sure where I remember reading about it or first hearing about it, but I can remember the first few times I began doing it. And one of the things that I would do is I would go through a meditation, usually like 5 to 6 minutes, and I would have a focal point of, hey, like, what is my intention for today? And this daily intention began to grow. As I began to do it, at first, I can remember like almost like searching in my soul, searching in my mind for this daily intention that I would set every single day. As I began to do this more and more, I began to realize how powerful that this would be for me. I began to realize how powerful this entire experience was. And there was many times where I would go into it and really have no idea of what I was going to get out of it. And then I would have this huge revelation when I came out of it. This morning, as I was journaling, which I do every single day, this message of like, hey, let's talk about setting an intention. Let's talk specifically about setting this intention every single day, came up for me. So one of my intentions for today was just simply to share my story about how I came up with setting this intention. Now, I've heard a lot of people over the year, since I've been doing it, I became more aware and heard other people doing it, but I'm really just going to give you my side of it and how it actually started. So like I said, I started doing this a little over a year ago, but one of the first big mountains that I wanted to move in my life back then was I began setting this intention on selling my fitness business. And I can remember in my mind thinking, well, shit, if I set an intention on this, it's going to move, this huge mountain in my life. And although at the time I believed that was true, at the time I also knew something else, that just because I set an intention once, just because I began to set this intention didn't mean that this was going to happen on that day or even the next week. I began every single day to set an intention in my business. I began to set an intention in my life every single day. And it wasn't just in my business. It became in my fitness, my fuel, my body, my relationship with my wife and my kids. I began to share my intention every single day and just write it down on a piece of paper. But the one thing that I was always committed to was continuing to dive deeper into setting this intention on my fitness business, because that was the one thing I wanted more than anything to sell. 60 days goes by from the day that I committed to sell my business, and literally, nothing really happens. Like, I start doing some research. I start, questioning, okay, is this the right move for me? But what I want you to know is this. As I began to set an intention, I began to get more focused. I began to have a focal point. I began to have this North Star. I began to look into the future. And as I set this intention, it began to show me not only what was in the future, but what was in the present. You see, sometimes when we set this intention, we get so focused on here's what I'm going to become in the future, instead of just focusing on, well, here's what I can do today. Here's the intention I can get today. So as I began to do this, I began to research. I began to research about brokers. I began to research different companies that sold their stuff, guys that were, selling gyms, just reaching out to people. And within 60 days, I'd found a broker. And as I continued to do this and find a broker, one of the things that began to happen was everything began to fall in place. Everything began to work. Everything began to literally fall into the place of where I wanted to go. It began to fall like dominoes. And as I launched my sales campaign, or as we did this for the business, it took us about 30 to 45 days to get everything lined up. And as we did that, what happened was we launched this I remember it was like on a Monday. By Wednesday, we had a full price offer. But I want you to see the manifestation of literally 60 days of really doing nothing other than research, and then 45 days of getting everything into place. So literally 3.5 months before anything happened. 3.5 months of me setting and being committed to a daily intention every single day. You see, a lot of times we feel like giving up. We feel like quitting because we don't see what's happening. But the one thing I stayed consistent with and committed to was every single day setting this intention, because I knew how powerful it was. I could begin to see things in my life change. I could begin to see dominoes fall. And that's the thing with intention, is if you look too far ahead in the future, you miss out on the things that you're seeing happening in your life today. So although it is good to look into that future, it's even more powerful to see what's happening today. And so this intention began to grow. This intention began to manifest inside of me. And I began to use this in other areas of my life. I began to just use it on the person even wanting to buy my business, setting an intention of how I wanted a meeting to go, or a conversation to go, or a day at work. And so I began to widen this intention, and then I began to go into this win. I began to write down the win for me today. If I did everything in my life today that I wanted to get done, what would it look like if I won today? And I began to list out 5 to 10 things that, hey, if I did this, this, and this, I would win today. But if I focused on the top 5, I would feel like I would win. And doing this over the last year, it's opened me up to realize that, hey, I can move literally any mountain in my way. But my intention that I set every single day is like taking a step. You guys have all heard this idea of mountain habits, moving mountains, climbing mountains. Like, you don't climb a mountain by leaping to the top. You don't get to where you want to be in a relationship by leaping to the top. Sure, you might be able to get dropped off at the top, but there's only really one way to go down from there. So as you're thinking about this, like, how do you even set an intention? Well, one of the first things that I did is I began to ask myself, hey, what is my intention for today? So if you're not doing that, a simple exercise to do is just sit in silence and just ask yourself this question: what is my intention for today? And as you begin to write down the answer, it's not necessarily something you should do, shouldn't do, or need to do. It's something that you want, something that you want to manifest and call forward. So even like today, my intention was just simply to be vulnerable, share my story, and share what was on my heart and share my feelings. Because these are normally things that I may lock up, but I'm not going to go there on that. I'm just going to stick to, hey, here's what I'm going to share today. So if you guys are listening to this and you're like, man, I'm kind of confused on how to do this. Well, guess what? In the beginning, I was confused too. In the beginning, I was like, dude, does this really work? And then as I seen to have things work in my life, what I started to notice was whatever I set my intention on today, if I focused on today, that intention would come forward. If I focused on the future too much, I would miss out on the intention of today. So the real focal point is not living in the past, which is like this should, shouldn't, could have, all these things, but getting us not in the future, which is, hey, I need to do this, or I should do this in the future. It's just getting us to live in the present and be intentional about today. Be intentional about what we actually want in our life today. And it only literally takes 5 minutes. It literally only takes 5 minutes. And I can remember last year at several Warrior Weeks for the certified trainers that I was running, we would go through this. Hey, what is your intention for today? And guys would immediately begin to use, hey, I need to do this, or I need to do that, or I should have been doing this, or I should be doing this. And it was all either past-based or future-based. And I was like, no, that's not your intention. It's almost like a wish. Let's get you focused on the present, the right here and right now, because too many of us are living in the past and too many of us are living in the future. And what I want you to get focused on today is living in the present by setting an intention every single day. So step 1, find a quiet place. Step number 2, ask yourself the question, what is my intention for today? Not tomorrow, not yesterday. What is my intention for today? And then step 3 is just to simply declare it either out loud or write it down. Personally, I like to write that down. So guys, if you're listening to this, there's 3 parts to this. They were powerful. I'm telling you, I moved a mountain in my business over 8 months just by doing this. I moved a mountain in my life, several mountains in my life just by doing this every single day. And I'm going to continue to do this every single day because I know the results of it. I'm a witness to the results and I've also lived the results. So guys, I appreciate you being on here. Give this intention a try every single day. See what happens. See what 5 minutes can actually help you do in your life every single day. You can reach out to me, Jesse, at habitbasedlifestyle.com. If you want to find out more about my programs and what I have to offer, you can also check out my website, habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have an awesome day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse